Okay, so the topic that comes now is, this morning we checked, do I have what I need in order to go on this path? And I told you what you need, what you have to be free from. Like the text, Losang Kappa's text, tells us what we have to be free from. By the way, I didn't mention it. This text, which is called Lamrim. Lamrim means graduated path to enlightenment. So it comes from another text, which is Atisha's A Land for the Path. And this text, The Land for the Path, comes from Atisha, an Indian master who was asked to come to Tibet because they got a bit lost in all these teachings of the Buddha, because the Buddha gave 84,000 teachings. So some people were practicing Tantra and thought this is what you have to do. Some other people were practicing Sutra and thought this is what you have to do. So then they invited him, and it's a long story again, and unfortunately we can't go into it. It's a very moving story, how he ended up finally in Tibet from India, because he was a very good scholar in India. So he then saw that, the questions, please write them down.
Just what is Lamrim?
Lamrim, graduated path to enlightenment. Lam is path, Rim is in steps. Okay? Okay. So, anyway, so he saw that the people were quite confused. So he took all the teachings of the Buddha and he made this step-by-step kind of manual, which is called the Lamrim. And most of the books you have there are Lamrim books. We have short ones, long ones, very long ones. The very long ones I didn't bring because it's 3 volumes about that size. So the text of the Lamrim text starts with appreciating the teacher and then going into present human rebirth and then impermanence and death. But actually what the text doesn't mention, what should come before, is that you already know where you want to go. This is why when we start with the teachings, on this text, we start with what is the mind, what do we want, what is enlightenment, and the Four Noble Truths. So it's kind of a map or a manual for people who feel familiar with the Four Noble Truths, which is not so difficult to get familiar with that. There is suffering, I don't like it, I have to understand it. These are the causes for the suffering, now it's already hanging outside. It's like, from your side, it's the right side of the thing. These are the causes for this, this chaos in the world. Then the Third Noble Truth, it's possible to change it into the left side, and then how. And with this how, there are many, many paths, right? So they have different schools. One is called the founder vehicle, sometimes it is called Theravadin, sometimes it's called Hinayana. Means you work for your own self-liberation. That developed mainly in Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Burma, Laos, Sri Lanka. And then you have what is called the Mahayana teachings, which is more in the north. I don't really know why it went more to the north, where you go on this path to liberate yourself in order to then liberate all sentient beings. So this is the root of this text. So first it was one text by Atisha, which is called the Lamp for the Path, and then out of that, maybe then it's more Tibetan, Losang Kappa kind of elaborated on this. And so we have this path here in this little booklet, very, very concise. But then if you, as I said, we also have the same steps, the same teachings, the same points in 3 volumes, like this big, yeah? So this is just an introduction so that you see what is being practiced, and then whatever you find helpful, even if you don't want to continue anything, then you adapt that. Whatever you don't find helpful, then you don't. It's like that. And then if you start to practice Tibetan Buddhism, it becomes very, very valuable, because that becomes your manual that you have with you all the time, because it's all about realizing these steps. And by realizing, I mean, if we realize that we have a precious human rebirth, then we're not wasting the time. So the discussion groups you had about meaningful life, did we listen to each other what a meaningful life is? Did we ourselves maybe become clear when we have to express it, what a meaningful life is? Yes? No? Still not? Okay. So then when you know that, for me a meaningful life is, then it's good to go in that direction. If you don't know what for you a meaningful life is, it doesn't help you to look at me, then you have to go inside and really look what is really important for me so that I can die without regret. Because also, dying is not something Buddhist. Everybody dies. Yeah. So this is why we just had a course on death and dying. So these are always the most harmonious ones because nobody can come and say, no, I don't believe in death. I mean, it's like, everybody dies. So then again, it's this big question, how do I want to die? So maybe, again, we go here, and you tell me how you want to die and how you don't want to die. Have you ever done that exercise? It's really, because, you see, this is such an important question. It will influence your whole life, how you live, so you can die without regret. And we don't even think about it, So while we are doing this, like we sit down and maybe if you do this alone, you write down a few points. How you want to die, how you don't want to die. And then you look, is there anything I can do already now that I don't die this way, but I will die that way? And then you see that there's something that can be done, but very little. Because, you can't really plan your death the way you want to go. But still we can somehow prepare with the flexibility that it could be totally different. So when we look, every step we plan. Even before you go to the supermarket, you plan what you're going to buy. But then a big thing like this that we need to plan, for example, where we want to go in our next life, oh well, I'll see when I'm there. Nobody goes to the airport without knowing where they want to go. Nobody even goes to the train station just thinking, I'll take the first train and see where it takes me. So this is how our mind functions, that we want to know where we're going, especially now with the internet and all these things. So do you want to do this alone, or shall we do it together with, again we make two, what is a good death, what is not a good death? Together? Okay, so we need somebody to write. Would you like to do it again? So we start with the not so good death, or shall we start with, or you can just say, whatever comes to your mind. Okay. Well, no, you make one smiley like this, and you make one smiley like that. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to go from this world totally relaxed, because nobody really dies, because the mind continues, it's only the body that dies, and say, wow, thank you so much. I haven't harmed many people, maybe I did even some good, how wonderful, I had such a good life. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to go like this? If your life is very difficult, because also this is what we have in the death course, that somebody said, but how can you say I had a good life when you had a very hard life? A hard life is not a bad life. That's just what we think. If you look at old people who had really hard lives, in general, when they're old, they're quite happy and content, especially when they're in old people's home and they don't have to work anymore. If they have worked physically really, really hard, in general. I don't know how it is here, but in Switzerland, if I go visit sometimes, if I see the people who have worked very, very hard, they say, wow, it's so great here, I don't have to work, they feed me, how wonderful. They see the good side. If it's people who were very, very rich and could buy all their freedom and thought, or let's say had the illusion of being independent, and then feel so bad that they lost their independence. Being independent is just an illusion. None of us is independent. We are dependent on the people who work in the supermarkets, in the fields, who transport these things, who fill up the shelves, just to eat. Imagine all of them say, okay, I won the lottery, goodbye, I'm going. And nobody else who needs a job to replace them. We're dependent on the garbage people. We're depending on the people who drive, everything we enjoy, everything we maybe don't enjoy, everything we need just to survive, comes through the effort of somebody else. So this so-called independence, I don't know where that is. It's just that we don't have these people in our face and we don't need to say thank you kind of directly, but think like this next time you go to the supermarket. If they all stop working? All the shelves empty. I don't know if you've been in an area where there was, they announced a natural disaster or a storm or whatever. Have you ever been in a place like this? It goes half an hour, the supermarket is empty. And there's nothing more to replace because people buy so much because they think that they go lacking with something. Then, we're not used. We can't imagine. Can you imagine going into a supermarket and empty shelves? We can't imagine because these shelves are always full. Yeah? So like this. So we're not losing our independence when we are dependent on others for our bodily needs or because the mind is going big gaga. We're just losing our illusion of having been independent. That's all. Yeah. And then again, so you can decide, as Viktor Frankl says, you can decide how you want to react to the situation. You have a choice, and nobody can take that choice away from you. But we have very, very deep-sitting patterns and views that this is good and this is bad and this I don't want and this. So you can make the smiley and the da-da. Okay, so we start with the good death.
Quietly.
Huh? Quietly. Peaceful.
With smile.
Smile, quietly, peaceful. So, can we do something already now so that maybe then it will happen? I think so. Because there will be an emergency situation where things are not going the way we want it to go. Yeah? So then we can already now, when things are not going the way we want them to go, the first thing we say, relax, smile, and then look what you can do. And with this is, oops, nothing. Yeah? Somebody else? Good death?
Satisfied. Being satisfied.
Being satisfied. Well, going out of this world with gratitude, for example, such a beautiful mind that we never train. We just take and take and take, and whatever we get is never good enough. Yeah? Just to think, wow, nobody has harmed me, nobody has ruined my existence, nobody locked me away in a prison or in a Holocaust or tortured me, nobody has kind of, whatever. If it happened, then you have to find out the things, So if somebody has taken away your partner, then don't think nobody has taken away my partner. Okay? So we can train this mind now, not just for death, also for old age, by the way. If you learn now, while the mind is still agile and is still working okay, to relax when things don't go the way you want them to go, that's patience. To relax into the difficult situation. Okay, that's the way it is. Then you feel getting a bit more spacious, and then you check, can I do something? If you can do something, you do. If you can't, that's it. Okay? Satisfied? Anything else? Huh? Aware. Fully aware of what's going on. We'll talk about this afternoon, that we will not be able to do that because the gross mind who is connected to the brain kind of disconnects, but it becomes more and more aware, but not aware of the outside, but of its nature. So dying is actually quite a pleasant thing once we have let go. Okay, being aware, fully aware. Huh?
Fully or not?
Aware.
The question
It's okay, fully. If you're aware, then let's do it fully.
Awaken.
Huh?
Awaken. Awaken.
Awaken?
Awaken, we might not at the time of death, but maybe when we come into the clear light. So we need to know it, but it's okay. We need to know what it is, what awakening is. Yeah. You really want to die totally awake? So many people say, I want to die in my sleep when I'm not aware of anything. Now you tell me all these things. You want to be fully aware, you want to be totally awakened. Wouldn't it be nice? Fully awakened, totally aware, with a relaxed and peaceful mind. For us unrealized beings, it's a bit difficult, Okay? Loving, yeah. Loving the thought, for example, may nobody suffer too much because of my death. Not to think about you. This is why it's so important already now that we think about others when we are well. Yeah, that we fill our heart with loving kindness now, every moment. When you are well, when you're wow, may everybody be well and happy and be safe or whatever. You're very realized people, Nobody says, for example, without pain. But anyway.
Let's add that.
Let's add that, because that's the biggest fear, isn't it? A good death is a death without pain. Then we can do nothing. The other things, what you mentioned, we can train. Pain, no pain. Although I think we can really be calm, because I don't know if you have nurses or doctors here. Don't have anybody? Because today the medicine is so advanced that they can really take care of your body pain in a kind of a good way. But you can still have a lot of mental pain, which then there's not much they can do. Yeah, and we don't know. We know if the person seems to be unconscious or in a coma. We don't know what's going on in their mind. Yeah, but the body pain, I think, is okay. But it would be nice, getting old, being totally, your mental capacities all still there, and fully aware of what is going on, and you are able to say goodbye to the loved ones. This is something, at the moment, there is people, I know, right now, I know somebody who has ALS. It's this sickness where all the muscles kind of just go. So she and her husband, her children, fully aware that she's dying. So their whole life is focused on her departure. And we can talk about this in a very open way. And of course there is pain that she has to go quite early, but it's really inspiring. So there's no rush, there is no panic. Ooh, I haven't done this, I need to do that. Ooh. It's like everything is there, everything is prepared. We talk about what kind of practices to do for her and for her husband. It's very beautiful in a way. Even though it's a terrible sickness, because now her hands are not working anymore, and her legs still work, the head kind of constantly drops. She can hardly talk, but her mind is in a very good state. And she's a spiritual practitioner. So you can see how it helps. But it's not a guarantee, by the way. I've seen people also in very bad body states, no spiritual practice, but mentally being quite okay. I have seen spiritual practitioners, when the body falls apart, their whole practice falls apart, because they were too good meditators. Whenever they sat down, in full bliss, you could see it, full lotus, clock, sit straight for hours and going into retreat, one after the other, not wanting to come out anymore. And then one of them, then he had I think it's called shingles, when you have these, the skin, and it's really itching and it's really painful and it pulls. In German it's called Windrose, Gürtelrose. I don't know what it's called in. You can have it here, or usually here, and then the skin gets very red and it pulls. I think in English it's called shingles. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's very, very painful. So his whole practice fell apart because he didn't find a place anymore. So if you have a lot of pain in your meditation, it's actually quite good because you can train to accept it. Anything else with the good death? There? Anything else?
Without struggle.
Without struggling, letting go, yeah. Slipping away, no struggle. Nice.
No attachment.
Be so, huh?
Without Without attachment.
No attachment. Yeah, there's this very nice verse in the sutra at the time of death. Imagine that all things are impermanent anyway, so go without attachment. Huh?
Sounds funny, but die healthy.
Huh?
To die healthy.
To die healthy. Wouldn't you be then attached to life if you die healthy? You know, again, it could be we have this illusion, but I think then one wouldn't want to go. If one is young and healthy, they don't want to go. Even if they have to go, there's a lot of struggle there. If one is old and the body is really suffering, very often these people say, I'm tired of living. And they stop struggling. And they die really peacefully. Yeah? Pain is body pain is part and parcel of our existence. If you want to have a human body, as it gets old, it gets more and more fragile. Whether you have a big sickness like cancer or, this ALS or whatever, or even if you don't have, I don't have a big sickness. My knees are hurting. I can't hear anymore. My stomach doesn't digest good anymore. It's like it comes with it, and it's not a reason to be depressed. Because Buddhism says if you want to have a body, then you will suffer. So you can get out of this being reborn again and again and again and again. Okay, so shall we go to the difficult ones? Because otherwise we're not getting into these points here that we need to teach you. How do you not want to die? It can be physical things, yeah, like what you are afraid of. It's important that you have to see, what am I afraid of? How do I not want to die? And this is, how do I want to die? Yeah?
Anxiety.
Full of fear, okay, anxious, full of fear. Oh. If already now we lock our room because we're afraid that we're going to lose our possessions, yeah? So then we will lose everything. We'll lose our identity, we will lose our body that we're so connected and identify with. I mean, to die without fear, we have to be a really good practitioner. They say the very good practitioners, they look forward to their death. Because they know that they're not really dying, it's only the body that dies, and then they practice these death absorptions that we will do tonight. Learning to stay in the clear light, right? So they wait for the clear light and they're very excited. That's the very good practitioners. Then the middle practitioners, they die without fear. And the lowest practitioners, at least they don't die with regret. They die without regret. They say, okay, I practiced to some extent, good enough, I can try better next time. Yeah? So, yeah, without fear, without anxiety. Anything else?
Not in a traumatic event.
Not when like panic and noise and this and that. Yeah, no. Huh?
Like a terrorist attack or something like that.
Yeah. But you see, even if you are, no, it's not a terrorist attack, you might end up in the emergency room. And there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of light, and there's a lot of stress in there. So train for that. Because again, if you go, I want to die like this, and then people are making noise next to you, you get upset. So you should die peacefully. So then again, but it's good. It's good to see, this I don't want. With anxiety and fear we can work. With outside conditions, it's good to see that we hope to die peacefully in a bed, nice at home, but we have no control over that. Yeah? So that's why it's good to write all these things.
So like
Yeah, not in a stress situation or traumatic, or how, to put it short. Or not in a terrorist attack. Okay, why not?
I don't want anybody to kill you. Simple as that.
Okay, you better make an SMS or WhatsApp to Mr. Death. Please don't kill me.
You asked us for it.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just giving a comment to it. I'm not saying it's wrong. Yeah? I'm just making comments. Yes? Okay.
From sickness that the mind is not clear, like Alzheimer or something.
Okay, not being dement. Don't know, maybe we die more peaceful when we are dement. Alzheimer's.
Not being sorry.
Not having a lot of regrets, not feeling sorry, not having the pain of regretting, or, yeah?
Not being alone.
That's the good one, right?
That was the bad one, with regret,
With
like
regret,
feeling
okay.
sorry would be. Yeah, feeling sorry, feeling guilty, feeling shamed or whatever. Very often when people are restless when they die, it's because not because of what they have not done, that they missed out on something, but because of what they've done. And sometimes, because I am with dying people sometimes, not so much lately anymore, but when I was in India still, we had a hospice and institute, but those were beggars, those were homeless people that we went to collect in the street who didn't have anybody, so we brought them to the hospice. And even then, the poverty syndrome, you would feed them, you would give them clean clothes, they would cling to you and say, boo, boo, mess up, boo, I'm hungry, give me something, give me something. Even those people would cling to their life, and they had terrible life. So it's like, not even those would. Some of them went quite peacefully. They realized that they were comfortable and cared for, but some totally not. But like in the West, like when I feel that somebody is really restless, it's really good to ask, is there something that you would like to tell me? Because I'm a neutral person. So you see, when it's a big thing, they don't want to tell friends or family because they feel too ashamed. It's very difficult to open up. If you have been hiding something, and then to open up. So if it's a neutral person, then it's very helpful, and very often it totally shoots out from them, like it just comes, and it's a big relief. So also, these things that bother you, let somebody know now. If you have things that you regret, having hurt somebody or whatever, let these people know that you feel sorry. That's not easy, is it? And we all have this idea, I think, again, I exaggerate sometimes, but many people have this idea, I will be on my deathbed, everybody that I love will be around me, and all the things I've done to them to hurt them, they will forgive me, because I'm dying. It's not like that. I have seen people not forgiving to dying people, and that's very painful. That is very, very painful. Or, people kind of making themselves even sicker than they are in order to make the people feel guilty that they forgive them what they've done to them. I mean, the stories that go on around death and dying, you can't imagine. Go and talk to somebody who works in a hospice or works with dying people. And there's not so many people who die peacefully, by the way. A lot of confusion, a lot of fear, because we lose everything that we're attached to, down to the body and our identity. Anything more with the not so great death?
Alone.
Huh? Alone. Ooh, I want to die alone. Alone. You see, when you have to go from somewhere where you love the people, even if you just go on a trip, you feel a lot of pain. Because you have to separate, you have to go. Even you're convinced you're coming back. So then, when you are, when, let's say you're alone, I just said goodbye to Leora Price. Again, I cried almost. And so did she. So if she would have been somewhere out shopping, and Fakir comes to pick me up in her house, there's no pain, there's no tears. Yeah? So dying alone is not such a bad thing. Because nobody can prevent your death, by the way. Yeah? But it can be different also. Some people wait until the people are there. Some people wait until you're out of the room so that they can go. So don't feel guilty and think, ooh, I should have stayed 5 more minutes. No. Yeah? Okay.
No pain.
Huh?
No pain.
With no pain? Well, no, this is the bad way, so with pain.
With pain.
Yeah, with pain.
And in Hebrew, you have a joke that if you want to die alone, you just have to eat alone.
You just have to
Eat alone.
eat alone. Okay.
It's alone, that alone.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it's a joke.
Okay, yeah, I know. It's a very cultural thing.